like to know how can Myanmar adapt to war with a powerful country?
I think that in the new kind of international relations that are emerging with the new multipolar set of the world, it's possible for all those countries that until a few decades ago were considered of a lower level to approach directly face-to-face with the great powers. This for a few reasons. First of all, we have a geoeconomical different aspect that is showing that the so-called collective West is no more so powerful to establish by himself the rules of the world. And because since the 20th century we started to dominate, to control the world, approaching with economic and international financial trade, so we see how it is more important than, how we could say, regular political relations. And now the Global South and all the countries that are the rest, respective and the West, are stronger and growing faster than the West. So this is the first point. A second one is that Western powers are still connected to a kind of conception of politics and international relations based on the old conception of the so-called rules-based order that was established after World War II, and that effectively it was based on the military control and deterrence with nuclear powers detained by the main Western countries. But nowadays, other countries, they have a military power that can face the West. So they cannot anymore consider themselves one step upper than the rest of the world. And this is so important. So also a little country, let me say little just for a geographical aspect, as Myanmar, can now face a great, so-called great power of the world face to face, because it's no more a rule-based order as the West on the military power of the United States of America and United Kingdom, but nowadays we are approaching with a state civilization model. So each civilization has its own and same value in front of the others. Yeah, relations with media are based on a strategic asset. And the first important thing we have to consider that nowadays information is a dominion of war. This means that we have to include it in the frame of the strategic studies, let me say. By this point of view, Myanmar has a great advantage because you have a Ministry of Information. That means that you have your own control of information. And this is something that in many Western countries is private and is fragmented in several private organizations and companies. This is so important because information is what gives shapes to the action of the people. And information, it's a form given. So if we want to give a narrative of Myanmar, but in general to confront with mass media of other countries, especially of the great powers of the old world, we need, you need as Myanmar people to set an info warfare strategy where you can consider, for example, how to talk about your culture without comparing to the cultures of the West. So just affirming your culture, that is a very important first point to don't remain inside of the logic, all the logic of the dependence to the countries of the West. Second point, the control of media is necessary, not just because of propaganda, but because as dominion of war, it is submitted to continuous attacks by other countries, even if we don't catch it, even if we don't see that. But how we communicate gives a mindset to the people. Yeah. So if I want to communicate the truth about myself as a nation, for example, I need to govern the information. Who rules the information rules the gray zone of hybrid warfare. And this is so important. It's the same for television, radio, also internet medias and social networks. That's interesting question. We know that India and Myanmar, they also have a border, and I think that the main strategic and geoeconomical aspect is the gulf in the sea that there is between Myanmar and India. Not only the communication by land. The relation between the two main ports in Myanmar and in India creates a kind of chain, a kind of economical corridor that I used to say it's the key of the Myanmar to become the heartland of all Southeast Asia. Because if you control that zone, you extend the influence of Myanmar together with India in the sea. And that sea, the so-called Indian Sea, it's a target of the dominion of the Western countries, especially the United States of America and the Navy of United Kingdom. This means that expanding Myanmar and Indian control there, also commercial control, you are stealing power to the Western countries that are still present there, not with a control in the trade, but with a military presence that is always an instrument of deterrence and can make fear to the investors to pass through that. And maybe one day that sea could be also used for opening new commercial lines, for example with Africa or with Middle East, having a full control of both two Gulfs, the Gulf, Persian Gulf and Indian Gulf, and so closing, let me say, all the rimland of Eurasia, opening to this new trade. This is a great opportunity. And of course, also doing the line by the ASEAN and so passing through the Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, all those countries, and going up to China. That's why this corridor is so important. And controlling that zone, it's fundamental for the future and development, both of the relation between India and Myanmar.
Yeah.